Okay, let's just jump right into this because I know exactly why you're here. Picture this, it's 3 a.m. You're lying awake in bed, staring at the harsh blue light of your phone, and you are doom scrolling. You're reading literally every article you can find, swiping through those endless Instagram infographics that list the 10 definitive signs of a toxic partner. You might have even taken a few online relationship quizzes, desperately hoping that a simple multiple choice score will magically hand you some clarity about the pain you're feeling right now. But let me guess what actually happened. You're probably sitting there right now feeling even more confused than when you started, right? And honestly, that is completely valid. The internet has this overwhelming obsession with diagnosing exactly who is to blame in a relationship. It really wants you to point a finger. But when you look at those checklists, the terrifying reality is that some of those negative traits describe your partner. And if you're being totally honest with yourself, some of them describe you too. That whole culture of blame doesn't bring clarity. It just leaves us entirely lost in the dark, wondering if we're the victim, the villain, or just something else entirely. Well, welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today because we are going to finally cut through all of that online noise. Today, we're decoding the clinical truth behind our deepest relationship pain by looking at the actual data, the source material, and the real therapeutic realities of couples counseling. We're going to explore what really makes a relationship toxic, and more importantly, how to recognize it without all the internet sensationalism. To give us a nice psychological safety net today, here is our roadmap. We're going to cover one, the toxic label trap, two, the waltz of pain, three, crossing the toxic line, four, penthouse versus the basement, and finally, five, fixing the broken system. We are moving from that painful 3 a.m. confusion straight to a structured data backed solution. All right, let's get into section one, the toxic label trap, myth versus clinical reality. The insights we're unpacking today come from 16 years of clinical experience, sitting face to face with over 3,000 couples. And you know what that real world source material tells us? The word toxic is thrown around so much these days that it's practically meaningless. The internet's algorithm absolutely rewards certainty. It loves feeding you endless content that validates your pain by labeling every disappointing partner a narcissist, making you solely the victim. But sitting in a therapy room reveals a clinical reality that is far more complicated and way more nuanced than a catchy social media post. So, how do we actually define toxicity then? Well, a truly toxic relationship crosses the line when the negative cycle, the criticism, the defensiveness, the stonewalling, when that actually becomes the default operating system of the relationship. It's not just your normal everyday conflict. Look, every couple fights, every couple hurts each other. That's honestly just the price of being vulnerable. Toxicity isn't about fighting a broken partner. It's about being caught inside a broken system where two terrified nervous systems collide and neither person can find the exit. Which brings us to section two, the waltz of pain, a tragic collision of nervous systems. Childhood survival strategies have this wild way of locking together to create a totally predictable, self reinforcing loop. It looks exactly like this. In step one partner reaches out to protest feeling disconnected, but that plea for connection lands on the other partner's nervous system as harsh criticism and evidence of failure. So in step two, that criticized partner protects themselves by pulling away and creating distance. And then in step three, the first partner interprets that distance as outright abandonment. Panic sets in, so they pursue and reach out even harder. It is literally a tragic dance they are blindly creating together. Let's move on to section three, crossing the toxic line when struggling becomes destruction. So, what are the actual signs that things have gone from just difficult to truly destructive? First, there's the duration and intensity of the disconnection. We're talking about couples spending days or even weeks feeling completely alienated. It's a rupture with absolutely no return. Second, attempting to fix things literally just makes it worse. You sit down for what's supposed to be a calm, rational conversation, and within minutes, you're both completely activated. The attempt to talk acts like throwing gasoline on a fire, and you both walk away feeling significantly worse. And then we have the third sign, which is absolutely devastating. It's called the cocktail of shame. This is a profound psychological mix where interrupted positive emotion forcefully collides with deep attachment wounds. When you're trapped in this cocktail, you feel fundamentally bad about yourself, right down to your core. Your nervous system is perpetually braced for the next blow. You're literally just surviving by defaulting to fight, flight, freeze, or placate, constantly walking on eggshells just to avoid the unbearable pain of feeling unloved. Section 4, penthouse versus the basement. Why people stay in toxic patterns. If you're experiencing this cocktail of shame, why on earth do you stay? The answer lies in how our nervous systems adapt to pain through something called orphan sovereignty, which is really just a trauma response cleverly disguised as independence. Think of it like a building. On the left, we have the penthouse. High achieving partners retreat up here to perform extreme competence and rationality because it feels safe, right? It feels perfectly in control. But they stay in the penthouse to actively avoid what's on the right, the basement. The basement houses all the raw, terrifying emotions, the deep shame, the profound exhaustion, and that absolute terror of just not being enough. But here is the crucial thing you absolutely must take away from this. Refusing to visit the basement does not make it magically disappear. Opting for that lonely illusion of self-reliance, hiding up there in the penthouse, ultimately destroys intimacy. Because you aren't dealing with the raw emotions, that unaddressed pain slowly leaks out anyway. It shows up as sudden rage, deep emotional numbness, and the slow, tragic erosion of literally everything you and your partner have built together. Okay, section 5, fixing the broken system, bringing in clinical precision and hope. Understanding your pattern is an amazing first step. But before we talk about repair, we need a very rigid safety caveat here. There is a huge difference between a toxic pattern and active abuse. If the driver is mutual attachment panic, it's a toxic pattern, and joint therapy, like emotionally focused therapy, is highly effective. But if the driver is coercion, control, or violence, that is abuse. In situations of abuse, joint couples therapy is entirely inappropriate and actually physically and emotionally unsafe. The nervous system just cannot safely study its relational patterns in that environment. Abuse requires individual therapy to establish basic safety first. Now, if you are dealing with a toxic pattern born out of mutual panic, I want to inject a massive dose of hope into this conversation. Research shows that an incredible 86% of couples show significant improvement when engaging in emotionally focused therapy or EFT. This framework is a game changer. because it helps the couple recognize the negative system itself as their common enemy. It gradually transitions partners out of their isolated defensiveness and brings them together into a shared space, like a shared suffering bubble, where mutual co-regulation finally becomes possible. And the success doesn't just evaporate when therapy ends. A staggering 75% of these couples maintain their positive gains years later. The relationship absolutely can be rewired, but it requires both partners to feel safe enough to drop their armor. It demands the grueling proof of work of mutual repair, deliberately replacing that constant conflict with the missing experiences of genuine comfort. So this brings us to our final question for you. Are you ready to see your system? The very next time you find yourself taking a random relationship quiz at 3 a.m., I challenge you to totally change your perspective. Stop using those quizzes as a weapon to diagnose or blame your partner. Instead, use them as a mirror. Use them to understand what happens to your own nervous system when love feels threatening. Ask yourself, are you the relentless lover constantly protesting abandonment? Or are you the reluctant lover desperately retreating from rejection? Because once you finally see the system, you can stop fighting each other and you can start fighting the path. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.